This is a Dude Studios production. And hey, I'm the dude.
Hey bartender, pass me a drink. A reason that I'm here is I need time to think. All the way
Welcome back to Hey Bartender Podcast. I am your bartender for the night. I am the dude. I am Anthony. You can call me whichever you like. I'm totally cool with it. Oh, tonight's a quick shot episode. The usual midweek, just quick one, and then we get out of here. What do you think about that, people? You know, I call myself a bartender on this thing, and some people probably think that I'm going to talk about getting drunk, how to get drunk, and all that sort of thing, but I never really talk about that, do I? I do help you guys out with some drink recipes if you want to give them a shot. This week's shot recipe, since this is a quick shot episode, I try to do shots on these particular episodes, is called a Snickers shot, or you can call it Storm Clouds. It comes off dishesdelish.com. Now, how you make the Snickers shot is what you're going to need is Bailey's, Kahlua, and Frangelico. Now, this is like in the same vein of the B52, except you put your clear in the middle. You take your shot glass, or maybe even like a cordial glass, something a little bit bigger than a shot glass. That way it looks a little bit more impressive. You pour your Kahlua at the bottom, then you slowly pour in, for a layer effect, the Frangelico, and then you layer Bailey's on top of that. You get this really groovy looking thing. Kind of looks like Storm Clouds, but when you throw it back in your mouth, you get that taste of chocolate, hazelnut, and, you know, maybe just a little bit of coffee in there since you're using a coffee flavored liqueur. But it actually sounds pretty good to me because I used to really like those kind of shots. The B52s, the carrot, no, I hated carrot cakes. You know, you get what I mean. But that's how you make the Snickers shot, or Storm in a glass, whatever you want to call it. Remember, if you go out and try these shots, or you pour one for your customers at your bar, be sure to let me know what they think about it. I'd love to know the feedback on some of these drinks. Since I don't work behind the bar right now, I really can't ask anybody. All you have to do is email me, dude@heybartenderpodcast.com. I'd love to hear the story of what the customer thought about it, and, you know, if they sold any good. I mean, I give you these things so you can put them up on your drink of the day boards or shot of the day boards. I know you guys all have them. Well, maybe not the corporations, but the mom and pop stores and stuff like that. I know you have drink specials. You know, this what I want to talk about today is something that I've been sitting on for a few months, just because I didn't know how to react to it. I didn't know what to do about it because, you know, I try my hardest, and believe me, people, it's really hard to do, is to try to keep this podcast as PC as possible. And in this day and age, trying to stay PC is damn near impossible, because you're bound, you know, I get listeners from all over the world. I look at my statistics, and I see that Hey Bartender Podcast has touched people all over the United States, all over South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, you know, just I've touched people all over the place, and it's impossible in this world to be able to think that it's actually laughable to sit back and think that you can produce a show without offending anybody. It's because it's damn near impossible. We're dealing with over 7 billion different personalities, us as podcasters. 7 billion possible different personalities all over the world. You are bound to upset somebody. Just to what degree? That's what you got to worry about. It's like when you're working behind the bar or you're serving tables, you tell a joke that might make the people at the bar laugh, one or two tables laugh, but then you tell the same joke at a different table to different people, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you would say that." And then you got to, you know, do anything from apologize to them, to have all the way up to maybe having a short conversation with your boss, or maybe even have to buy their meal. I mean, honestly, there are a bunch of people out there, like comedians, There are some comedians that I like, and there are some comedians I don't like. If I don't like them, I don't watch them. It's just plain as that. You don't have to start an online petition to get them taken off the face of the planet. Now, what I'm getting at with this podcast, with this particular show that I'm doing today, it didn't ever get that far. However, I tried to be as politically correct as possible with this one show that I knew was going to be a little bit racy from the beginning, but I decided to do it anyway because it's a bar story, and that's what I tell on this show. Bar stories. I've never really spent the time explaining to you guys where some liquor comes from, or the chemical reaction of putting various different liquors or liquids together. No, I'm not all about that. I'm not a scientist. I'm a bartender, and so I talk about bartending stories. Since I'm behind the bar, I don't get drunk behind the bar. I can't really talk about that either. Of course, I really don't get drunk in my personal life either. It's no other reason other than a choice. I'm really bad at drinking, people. So, I've got all these friends that when they meet me or they hang out with me for a long period of time, all of a sudden they're like, I want to see him drunk. And I'm like, yeah, not going to happen. Because you guys know the story. I turn bright red and nothing ever really interesting ever happens. I worry that my heart's going to beat out of my chest. That's interesting for me, but it doesn't really interest anybody else. I saw this coming though. Like I said, the subject matter that I was bringing up, it was something that I was a little scared to talk about, but then I listened to other podcasts and they talk about stuff that's way more racy than I am. I mean, I still like them. I still appreciate them. And, it's an interesting take on what these people have to say, no matter what their topic has to be. But let's see, I've done, this is episode 185. This was back in episode 172. There was a short period of time, I don't know if any of you guys noticed, but I took a little bit of time off, took a week here and there, skipped a few quick shot episodes. And because I really had to sit back and think about this for a little while. Episode 172, which is titled, So I Don't Get Around Much. Now, the point of that particular episode was telling people that I'm not one of those type of guys that goes around trying to pick up women constantly. I was always treated them respectfully. I didn't use any pickup lines on them. Some of them probably thought I did, but what's a pickup line anyway? Everything can be construed into a pickup line, all the way from what can I get you something, all the way up to what look good on you? Me. I hate that one. Never liked that one. But I was telling all of you people that I never went home with or took anybody home after my shift because my mind was always on the work. It's some people try to give me the advice of, hey, why don't you just, lock up the bar, go home with that girl, and then come back after everything's all finished, and then clean up the bar. And you know what? No, I can't do that. I was really centered on work, and that was also one of the reasons why during my time as a bartender I was single so much, because I was concentrating on work, really, really concentrating on work. Because, I needed the money. But, episode 172, I talked about that I wasn't the type of guy that used pickup lines. I never went home with anybody. And all of a sudden, shortly after that podcast got posted, I got an email, not going to mention names or anything about them other than this. Other than it was from a woman that got offended by it. And I'm sitting there saying, what were you offended by? Now, I was never given any real information, but they said they thought the topic was too racy, too delicate, and could possibly offend a lot of people. And I started thinking, I was talking about how I never went home with any women. There might have been girls that were ready to give me the opportunity, but I didn't take it because I was either too stupid to realize that they were hitting on me, or I was concentrating on work. If you're a betting person, bet on the first one. But I always sat back and thought, in the bars, I mean, all the stories that I told in that particular episode were true. And, I didn't change any names. I didn't make any of them up. Didn't have to. I lived it. And I start telling these stories, and then somebody gets offended by it, and they don't really give me the information on why they're offended by it. They just said they thought it was inappropriate. And I'm like, these are real stories. These are things that actually happened. Am I supposed to keep my mouth shut about, maybe there was a girl that hit on me? Am I supposed to keep my mouth shut that I wouldn't take home a girl that was drunk off her ass because I was always worried about that she'd freak out in the morning when she saw me sleeping next to him? It was just one of those things. But I got I felt it when that hit. I was like, well, shit. And, now there's a podcast out there. People are going to think I'm sexist and all that sort of thing. But I had to remember it was only one email of somebody saying something bad about the podcast. Usually when I receive emails or comments on the podcast, they're usually pretty positive. But of course, me being a human being, like all of us, sometimes you hit us on the right day, we concentrate only on the negative. And so I started sitting back thinking, okay, what was inappropriate about it? Well, I talked about how I never took advantage of women. I never let women take advantage of me because they were drunk, and I never allowed that to happen. And pretty much I was being good, and if there was something bad that happened, basically I was the victim. But it really irked at me, and it's like, well, crap, how do I get on and tell these stories to be a little bit more politically correct? And it eventually came to me. I started thinking about okay, what other times have I dealt with jokes where I thought I was being funny, but it ended up being politically incorrect for me to say certain things? And it pretty much came down to times when I knew I was being sarcastic or along those lines. I mean, I've posted on the Instagram page every once in a while, bartender sarcasm tips like, hey, do you want to step outside? You should answer, no thanks, I don't need a blowjob right now. Things like that. And I'm so proud of that one, and I'm pretty sure I stole that from a movie somewhere. But I'm proud of that I was able to use that in a conversation one time. Now, some people would get extremely offended by that. And then there were these other people that came into the bar, tried to act like hot shit. And, it's like, oh, yeah, hey, I can get you the drink you want. I know the bartender. They'll pour you a good drink because, hey, I'm good friends with the bartender. Aren't we, dude? We're good friends, aren't we? And I said, oh, sure, as far as you know. And, then I'd get this like bloodshot stare for a second. Bloodshot mostly because I wasn't going to serve him because he was already like 3 sheets to the wind. But he was trying to impress all of his friends, but I wouldn't allow it to happen. That probably offended him. But to sit back and assume that a podcast like mine, where I'm telling stories from the servers and bartenders' point of view, to sit back and assume that I'm not going to talk about times where we got hit on or where, any of that situation never happened. Of course it happens. It happens all the time to a fault nowadays, because if any of you who listened to the podcast I did with Alex Torres, sometimes people take it too far. But, I was telling it on the flip side of it. I never took it too far. I would never let it go too far. Sure, there were guys that hung out in the bar and they thought it was okay to slap the server on the ass. No, that is a big no-no. That is not okay, and I will kick you out for doing that. And I don't care if my server says, oh, don't worry about it, I know him. No, he's done. Get him out of here. And I've talked to a lot of male bartenders in the past. I've never brought any of those guys on my show. What they do in their private time is their business. But when you got those guys that sit down and brag about it all the time and say, oh, yeah, I took home this chick last night. No, that's not what I'm going for. But to sit back and think that nobody's ever going to talk about situations of people trying to hook up in any situation. It doesn't have to be the bar and restaurant or service industry in general. It can be any situation in this world, and there's going to be some kind of tension in the air somewhere. But basically what I was going for in that particular episode is basically don't shit where you eat. I mean, if you're a bartender or server and you want to stay comfortable in that situation, maybe dating your coworkers or dating a customer might not be the greatest idea. And still, somebody got offended by me saying that I never took advantage of any women. I thought I was being a gentleman. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was being respectful. It's the way my dad raised me, to be respectful to people in general. Not, in this case, for that particular episode, respectful towards women. There's a lot of cases in my lifetime, my personal venture, where I have been extremely respectful to women that are very attractive, that you can tell that all the men in the room are just drooling over her, and I treat them with nothing but respect. In fact, it gets to even the point where I'm afraid to stare at them in the eyes, or because they get enough of that, and it's not the women that whoa, that phrase almost got me in trouble, but there are some women out there that just get annoyed by all these guys gawking at them all the time, and so I try to be a gentleman about it, give them a break, then try to be respectful. In my mind, that's the way it seems. But I had to take some time off and really, really think of it, because I didn't want to jump back onto the podcast and just go off on this whole rebuttal about, I wasn't being disrespectful. The podcast in no way, shape, or form was supposed to offend anybody. It's impossible nowadays not to offend somebody, but it's about how you handle it. In any situation, you're a bartender, you're a server, you get this one customer that decides that it's okay to tell you a dirty joke. Or they think it's okay to comment on your physical look or something like that. Okay, that depends on how you want to take it. Now, you can come up, if you worked in my bar and you're a server and told me that this guy will not stop talking about stop talking about various parts of your body, I'll say, don't worry about it. I'll take the table from here on out. Nobody gets hurt from there. And sure, the table might get a little bit depressed that they don't have that one particular server anymore. But, believe me, you'd rather deal with me than to do something that you'll really regret, that will get you kicked out 86th or possibly escorted out by the local county sheriffs. Now, did I think it was okay that I had servers that were where I overhear their customers say something slightly inappropriate to that particular server, and I go, are you okay after what they just said? And they're like, oh, I know them, it's okay. And it turned my stomach a little bit from time to time that they're just so nonchalant about it, but that's their decision of how they want to handle it. Because, come on, people, you got to remember, none of us out here that work in the service industry make enough money to be belittled, berated, or disrespected. None of us make enough money for that. We make money to provide good service, good food, and a good atmosphere, but it doesn't mean that you have to take shit from anyone. That's why at the end of every single episode, all 185 of them that I've done, every single episode, I remind you guys, don't take any shit from anyone, because we're not paid enough for that. But some of us out there might have a little bit of issue with like self-esteem and sit back and think, I deserve this. I could have gone to college and I wouldn't have to deal with this. No, God, no. Even if you went to college, there's not one person in this world that gets paid enough to be treated like that, unless they're into that sort of thing. That's a completely different podcast, people. You won't hear anything about that from Hey Bartender podcast. But when I received that email, like I said, I had to take a step back. I had somebody actually tell me that what I was doing was offensive, inappropriate, and I'm sitting there thinking, these stories that I'm telling are true. Do I keep my mouth shut about some of the stories? Because the point of telling these stories to you guys and bringing other people on to tell their stories is to entertain, to inform. And I don't consider myself very informative, but I do try to entertain. I guess comedians go through this sort of thing all the time, where they're telling a joke or they're making fun of a particular person in the audience. That particular person in the audience thinks it's funny as hell, but then somebody else sitting in a completely different area that has no relation whatsoever gets offended, and they take the time to go backstage and say, I was offended about that for them. And they're like, what? The guy I was making fun of was laughing. He was carrying on. What's the problem? I just don't think you should have made fun of him like that. And the comedians usually, tell a story how the person that he was making fun of took it all in great stride, but somebody who had nothing to do with that joke or that person took offense to it and thought they should tell him how they should tell a joke. They became the leading authority on how they should tell a joke, or what they can joke about, what's funny, or how you should do things. Okay. Yeah. So this is my first time where I've actually offended somebody or made somebody feel, feel like what I was saying wasn't right. This is, there was that one guy in Spain that took offense that I said that us as service industry people here in the United States don't get paid well, but he did. And but he came in and represented himself really well and told me his story and mentioned that he has medical benefits. He makes a good hourly wage. Good for you guys out in Spain, in Europe, all you guys that you're a server and you're paid a livable wage. But unfortunately, that's not as common here in the United States. At least not right now. There are things changing. But after that lady sent me that email, I went into deep thought. I was sitting there thinking, well, shoot, I've offended somebody. Is that going to affect my listenership? Is that going to affect, how this podcast grows? Or if I ever will be able to make money doing this podcast? Because, come on, I've been doing this for 3 years. There's always that hope for making some money doing a podcast. Hell, that's why most people started a podcast in the last years, because they didn't have a job, and so they decided to become social media influencers. A whole bunch of those people, especially on TikTok, started coming out of the woodwork all over the place. Of course, now a lot of them don't have time to post as many times as they usually do because they got to get back to their regular job, but that's okay. But I do this podcast because it's fun, and I get to meet some really groovy people, but I do have a day job that I have to that I'm obligated to do. And quite frankly, if I tried to just do this podcast alone, I be recording with a laptop plugged into a bus station outlet, sharing it with other people that are trying to charge their cell phones, and posting on some kind of free Wi-Fi somewhere. But if I think about it, out of all the people, I can't say that I've had over 5,000 people listen to the show. I can definitely say I've had over 5,000 downloads so far this year. So the number of people that listen to this show is between 1 and 5,000. That's the only logical thing that I can possibly say about it. But one offended person out of all of that, okay, my odds are still doing pretty good. I got to sit back, relax, and realize, okay, that was one person that got offended. There's possibly other people that got offended. They just didn't have the time or the need to email me about it. But other people enjoyed it. Other people understood it. And that's why I aim at people at the service industry, because we, as service industry people, we put up with a lot of shit. And the stuff that I talked about in 172 is some of the shit that we deal with. So my idea on it, I sit back and say, fuck it. We as bartenders and servers, we do our best to make everybody happy, make everybody comfortable. And if we offend one person out of the day, I used to consider that a pretty good day. If I only offended one person. Of course, there were other days where I sat back and thought, I only offended one person today. Am I tired or something? But if you feel like that you have to change the person that you are in order to be able to do something that you enjoy doing, because, believe it or not, all you people that have never worked in the service industry that might be sitting listening to this podcast, some of the people out there do enjoy serving tables or bartending. To them, it's fun. It's a way to be social. It's a way to make friends. But, and because some of you people sit back and say, well, if you don't like what you're getting paid, or if you don't like the way you're being treated, fucking quit. Get yourself a real job. No. Working in the service industry is a real job. We have good days. We have bad days. Days where we make a lot of money. Days where we don't make shit. And that's just something that we all have to deal with for now. And, and we're also big problem solvers. And customer service, holy shit. If there are companies out there that think that we need people that work in customer service and hire a person straight out of college that learned customer service in 4 years but never waited a table, you don't have a person that's good at customer service. You've got an ass kisser. So, which customer service, there's a little bit of give and take with the ass kissing, but it's not 100%. It should never be 100% ass kissing, because there are some people out there that you just can't make happy no matter what you do. And of course, there are those wild card customers who you think that no matter what you do, you cannot make them happy. You cannot, but the whole time they pretty much enjoy the back and forth between themselves and you. So you can't make them happy. They enjoy not being happy. And so you kind of adjust a little bit to work with their personality, but you don't have to take it 100%. There are times where you can sit back and say, hey, you got to back off just a little bit. I don't know you that well for you to treat me that way. That's something my cook said to a customer one time. I thought it was gold. Oh, that felt good to get off my chest. Whether it made sense or not, we'll find out in post-production here. But anyway, people, it is last call for alcohol. As usual, I got to thank Laura Hope and the Arctones. I love using Dr. Bartender as the intro track for this podcast. It's a perfect song for it. Also got to thank deliciousdishes.com for allowing me to steal the drink called the Snickers bar, or if you're that lacks your sensibility, Storm Clouds in a Glass, onto the podcast. But I got to remind you guys, if you want to help support Hey Bartender Podcast, head on over to www.heybartenderpodcast.com. I sell Hey Bartender Podcast t-shirts and a few other trinkets on there. Go check it out. Find something you like. Help support the show. Buy a t-shirt, support a podcast. That's all you have to do. Remember to help me out and give me a rating, maybe a comment on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. That would help me out totally. 5 stars will always be greatly appreciated. And if you want to follow me on Facebook, just remember at Hey Bartender Podcast. On Instagram at Hey Bartender Podcast. On TikTok, usually I just on there just do a quick clip of the show to advertise that there's a new show out there. But every once in a while you might see me throw a video on there that is TikTok worthy. I've only had one video taken off TikTok, and that was because I think it violated copyright. But anyway, if you want to find out when the new shows come out, just follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of them at Hey Bartender Podcast. But anyway, that's it for this Wednesday's Quick Shot episode. As usual, I just want to wish all of you lots of love, lots of sex, lots of happiness, and don't take any shit from anyone. Good night.
I think I need another drink. What do you mean it's last call? I just got here.